Hello, this is Steve, and I hope you're having a really great day today. Today, I am going to teach you a game that I've been playing on the pool table since 2001 when my buddy Jeff and I invented it. It's called I Own You, and I think you're absolutely going to love it. Now, the reason I was inspired to share this game with you is I have found that so many people who have pool tables, they kind of grow tired of playing 8 ball and 9 ball all the time, but really don't know what other games to play. So I think you're going to find I Own You to be a really fantastic addition to the games that you guys play. I know that it's been one of our very favorites. So today I'm going to show you everything that you need to know about this game so that you can start playing it. How it's racked and set up, how the gameplay unfolds, what to do in unique circumstances like if somebody scratches, how the scoring works, and I'm also going to show you some really cool ways that you can handicap the game so that it's always competitive, even with players of different skill sets. Now, this is a great game to play with two people, or you can play it with two teams. So to illustrate this game, I'd like to go to the whiteboard. And when I show it to you on the whiteboard, I think what you're going to find is it's a clear way to learn the game, and then we're going to go downstairs and I'll show it to you on the table itself. Let's take a look. Okay, this is the way that you rack the balls for the game. You'll see here we have 7 balls racked on one spot and 7 balls racked on the other spot. I'll show you how to create those racks when we get downstairs. There's a certain order you want to put the balls in. Now, once we have those racked, the other thing that you'll notice is we have 2 cue balls on the table. Each player or each team gets their own cue ball. Now, if you don't have 2 cue balls, don't worry about it because you can use the 8 ball as your second cue ball. Now that we have it racked this way, we're going to do a simultaneous break. So one player, in good cadence, will say 3, 2, 1, break. And when that player says break, both players simultaneously break their cue balls into their racks. Player A down here is going to break into this rack, and player B is going to break into this rack. You don't have to hit too hard on this break. A nice soft break is going to work. All you want to do is scatter the balls around the table. So here's the cool thing about the game and how it got its name. The opponent's cue ball is always in play. So if you successfully sink your opponent's cue ball, then you proclaim, I own you. And when it's your opponent's turn, then you can put your opponent's ball wherever you want to on the table. There are definitely some restrictions and limitations in terms of where you can put it on the table, and we're going to go through that in detail later on. Now let's talk about how the scoring works. Let's say that player A is stripes, and player A has successfully potted all of the stripes on the table. Well, if there are 3 solids left on the table, then player A scores 3 points. So you not only want to win each rack, but you want to win early so that you score the most points. Then you re-rack, you keep playing, and the first player to get to 11 points wins. Now let's talk about what happens when somebody scratches. Of course, anytime you scratch, you lose your turn, but this time the opponent gets to proclaim, I own you. Now, if a scratch happens on a break, even if the person was slated to go next, if they scratch on that break, then the opponent proclaims, I own you, and they get to go first instead. And then when they're done with their turn, of course, they get to place their opponent's cue ball. Now, when is the worst time to scratch? Imagine this. Imagine I'm stripes, and I'm working my way through the stripes, and I pot my opponent's cue ball, and I say, I own you, and then I continue to shoot at my stripes. If I scratch at that point, then my opponent gets to proclaim, I own you, and they get ball in hand. So that is by far the worst time that you can possibly scratch. Now, I've described the whole game to you. I hope you have a pretty good understanding of how it's played. Let's go down to the pool table itself and take a look. All right, here we are down at the pool table. We are racked up and ready to play. You'll notice we've got 7 balls racked on one spot and 7 balls racked on another spot. We also have 2 cue balls on the table. One player is going to use the cue ball, the other player is going to use the 8 ball. Let's zoom in and take a look at how these balls were racked. So I've brought the 2 racks together here so you could see all the balls at one time. Now the way this would play is this 8 ball would break across the table into the 7, so they are going to be playing solids. And then this cue ball here would break across the table into the 12, so they will be playing stripes. Now the way that these balls are racked, we've got a bent row of 3 stripes to lead the rack, followed by a bent row of 3 solids, followed by a stripe on the tail. And then we have the opposite of that on the other side of the table, where we have a bent row of 3 solids, followed by a bent row of 3 stripes, and then 1 solid on the tail. That's a great way to set them up, and the way that we have been using for several years now. Now, in order to actually bring these balls together, you can just push them together with your hands. It's only 7 balls, so you push them together and then move them right up over the spot. And if that's hard, maybe you have small hands, or maybe the balls are kind of separating when you let go, you can also use a triangle. Now let me show you something. Take a look at this row of balls right here. We've got the 11 in the back, followed by, it looks like the 1 and then the 12 ball. Now if you want to use a triangle rack to push these balls tighter together, look at this. There's the triangle rack. We've got these same balls, 11, 1, and 12, all in a row. And all I've done here is I've added this cue ball to the very end. Then I can put the triangle over the top and push all those balls into the top corner of that triangle, pull the triangle away, roll the cue ball to the side, and you're good to go. So now, once again, you're all set up and ready to play. As you remember, one player will say 3, 2, 1, break. And at the word break, that's when you make contact with your cue ball. So it's a simultaneous break. The 8-ball player is going to break across the table into this rack, and the cue ball player is going to break across the table into this rack. And then the play just continues. Whoever was determined to go next begins their turn until they miss, and then it's the next player's turn. Now, several scenarios are going to come up, and of course, this game is called I Own You. So let's talk about ball placement once you own your opponent. So here's the scenario. Imagine now that the 8-ball player owns the cue ball player, which means one of 2 things happened. Either their opponent scratched or they potted their opponent's cue ball. So now the 8-ball player went on to play their turn, and now their turn is over. Perhaps they missed on the other side of the table. And now what's happening is the 8-ball player is deciding where to place their opponent's cue ball. Now a lot of strategy comes into play here. You don't want to give your opponent an easy shot. That's one of the joys of I Own You. You want to set them up with something quite difficult. So there are also some legal places to place the ball. First, let me show you where you cannot place the ball. You can't put it right in the corner where you would be hooking them. You also can't put the cue ball right up against another object ball. And you can't put the cue ball all the way up against a rail. What you want to do is make sure that the width of one pool ball separates the cue ball that you are placing from anything else on the table. So it's got to be 1 pool ball away from a rail or a cushion, and it needs to be 1 pool ball away from any of the other object balls. So a legal ball placement would look like this. You can grab a ball that's not in play, like the 14 here, just to make sure that you've got the distance that you need. Or if we wanted to put that cue ball up near that 2, just make sure that 1 pool ball can pass between the cue ball and that 2 ball. And then you'll be putting it in a good legal place. I hope all that makes sense. We're going to move on now to how to handicap this game. Handicapping pool games is something that I love to do. It makes it a lot more fun for the people who come to play at my house. I get to play every single day. Maybe some of them are on a pool table just once or twice a year. So we want to do some things to make the games more competitive and more fun for everybody. Here are 4 simple ways that you can handicap the game I Own You. First off, we'll say that player A is the superior player in each one of these examples. So first off, player A would need to play to 11 points to win the game, whereas player B would only need to play to 7. Really simple way to handicap it, just by adjusting the final score. The second way is player A gets the typical 1 miss per turn, where player B is awarded 2 misses per turn. This is a great way to do this. I handicap this way on all the pool games that I play. The next one is player A needs to pot their balls in numeric order, and player B can pot their balls in any order at all. That's one of my favorites for this game. And then the fourth and final way has to do with owning the opponent. So if player A is the superior player, when player B owns player A, then player B can put player A's ball in a super challenging place. The opposite of that, let's say that player A owns player B. Well, player A can then concede owning player B and just give them ball in hand. Or if they want to not give them ball in hand, then player A can place player B's ball in a fairly favorable position. And that's going to be a really nice way to handicap the game. So that's it. We've gone through all the details on how to rack and how to play I Own You. I hope that you find it to be a tremendous game, and I hope that you love playing it as much as we do. Let me know how it goes for you. Best wishes to everybody. Take care out there.